Welcome to the Beehive. This is my theme song.
You're now entering the Beehive with your host, Double B.
Well, hello, and welcome to my wine cave. This is the Beehive with Double B, the bougiest show around, and I'm your host, Double B, aka Bobby Williams. I'm happy to have you here. So, I just want to start by thanking everyone who checked out the first episode. It was very cool just seeing the shares and getting the responses, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm very much enjoying this whole process of this. Today's episode is going to be a very special one because we have a very special person who joined me, Erica Freas. And Erica is originally from Olympia, Washington, but she's also kind of a global citizen in a way. She's traveled around this whole planet, touring, doing her own music with her band Reviver and, her own solo stuff. And she's currently living in Bristol. And so there's about an 8-hour time difference between the two of us. So we had a good time. We talked. We got into touring stories, life stuff. We talked about COVID, which is on everyone's mind right now. And music. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for checking it out. Give us a share. Welcome to the Beehive. Cheers. But yeah, so you were just in Olympia.
Yeah.
Like a few weeks ago, and then flew back to the UK. What was that plane flight like? Imagine that would be kind of an awkward flight.
It was so wild. Like, I felt very comfortable, it's not comfortable, but I felt like ready and willing to really like isolate and lock down at the first kind of like sign that this was gonna bloom out of control and we weren't necessarily going to be getting direction from like the government or whatever.
Yeah.
So I hadn't been on I-5 for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And driving up to SeaTac, the freeway felt really empty. The airport was really empty. I was like kitted out in like mask, gloves. I had little wipes for surfaces, little wipes for my hands. I was wearing like a suit over all my clothes. Because I was like, I'm a body traveling from Seattle to the UK. I want to be as cautious as possible, so I'm not bringing anything with me,
Yeah.
So the flight, it was awkward. There was only probably 30 people on the whole flight, big jumbo jet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole row to myself before and after me, like 3 rows of just me.
Yeah, normal circumstances, that'd be great.
It was pretty great in this circumstance because I felt like on the flight to the Northwest from JFK, I had somebody behind me these 2 older people, they were probably in their like 60s or 70s who were just like hacking away the whole time.
Yeah.
And that was on March 10th and I was already like I was wearing a mask and I was being aware that like this, like it felt like a tree was falling slowly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I have to get in a car with my dad when I get off this flight. So having nobody behind me on the flight to the UK was like, I was happy about it.
What's the vibe like out there? Or is everyone, it's similar to Olympia? Everyone's quarantining or?
Yeah. I think the difference in Olympia is that there's so much space that it felt really like, like if you're walking around like the east side, the streets are really wide and there's less people. So it's really easy to just give each other more than 2 meters of room everywhere.
Yeah.
I live in the city here like in a building where we're stacked on each other, and then in a neighborhood with like loads of people. So there's more kind of tension, and also more kind of like when I got here, I was feeling like as long as we are doing our part not to be spreading the virus, like we can get creative about spending time with each other. It
Yeah.
feels important to do that. But here there's more of a vibe of like, oh no, the neighbors would snitch on us, or like, you know what I mean? There's like a,
Kind of. What do you mean? Like what's the issue with the neighbors, or like you're saying if you had a person over or something?
yeah, like if you were sitting out front of a friend's house, have like you bring your own tea,
Yeah.
sit 10 feet apart, what's the harm in that?
Yeah, yeah.
But then uh here I feel like it's not like the laws are different. Like you can get fined, but I haven't heard of anybody being fined. But it's like
Yeah.
people are more on alert that they might be like judged or somehow told on if they
Mhm.
aren't perceived to be following the quarantine
Yeah.
enough or something. And I'm like, I feel like there's a cultural difference there that I am trying to figure out.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also happy to just like go with the flow. I feel like this is a lot about just going with the flow, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting just going to like the grocery store or something like here in Olympia, and you can kind of feel the anxious energy. At least
Mhm.
I have like a few times, or it,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm not used to it. It's not fun,
no.
but it is what it is.
Yeah, and we're all learning together. Like, I feel like there has to be space for, there just needs to be grace with each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because everybody's like, has different means, different resources, different
Hmm.
things that their social group are doing at the same time that might be different than what your social group is doing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, it's I'm interested to see like what is the long term, like are we going to have concerts again? Like that's something I'll be really sad if we don't have like big concerts for a while.
Seems like we probably won't.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, no summer concert series this year. But
Yeah,
I mean beyond
I,
that, just any concerts.
I haven't thought about big concerts like I guess like corporate level music, but I have this, I guess I've been thinking that like underground level music, you know, like a
Yeah.
200 rap or like a
Mhm.
basement show probably will come back sooner.
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
I just want
But
to see like Tech Nine and like the rappers I like.
yeah, I mean that fucking Rage Against the Machine concert got postponed till later in the year. People are so sad.
Yeah, well, and who knows if that will even happen.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and those tickets seem so expensive, like everyone's like, oh, Rage Against the Machine fighting the system with their like high ticket prices. And
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to know the backstory on that because it's Rage with Zach. That's like the big selling point why everybody's like ready to really go there and spend a
yeah.
bunch of money. But what made him come back now, and why is it with so much? Why is the ticket so high?
Uh-huh. It's like a big cash grab or something. Well, so what inspired you to move to Bristol?
Well,
You're
I'm
here.
from Olympia, like born and raised. I was born in Camilchi, and
Uh-huh.
my partner Jack, who I live here with, he was living in Olympia for like 4 years, 3 or 4 years, and we were talking about just like doing a switch for a while. And then once we
Mhm.
started talking about it, he was like, you know what, actually, I really want to move back, like for real. And I was like, that's different than like trying it out for like 6 months or something. But
Yeah.
I thought about it and was like, I've lived in Olympia my whole life. So I thought it seemed like a good thing to try to see what it feels like to be the new guy, the foreigner, the yeah, like a I don't know. It's just like a big experiment feeling.
Yeah. What was the process of like doing the international touring, or how'd you get into doing that first?
Well, I feel like So that was with my old band Reviver.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a really awesome intersection of like right place at the right time with DIY punk,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like we started in about 2008, and you know, there weren't smartphones. Like we didn't have any smartphones in our group until like I think I guess 2012,
Yeah.
when our friend Noah joined the band as kind of like merch guy. He had an iPhone and we all were like, "Oh my god, can I use the internet on your phone?" Like for the whole
Yeah.
tour. But so before that it was like okay, your question was how do we get into international touring, and the way is that we were a DIY band doing everything for ourselves. There was no Instagram, and we didn't have Facebook, but there was like punknews.org, which is a like fairly crappy website.
Yeah.
But like for whatever the setup was just then at that time in the world, like people from other countries would email us and be like, "Hey, I saw like a YouTube video of you playing live in Canada and think that you're a really great band. Do you want to come to Brazil?"
Oh, wow.
No, first we went to Europe with this friend who's really dear now because I've known him for a decade. But this guy Jan who runs Yo-Yo Records, and when he was a teenager, he just was emailing bands from around the world, being like, "Hey, I would take you on tour." And he took Maddie Joe, the other guitar player in Reviver. He took her band on tour before Reviver, and so just like kids in Germany, Brazil, Japan, we went to Southeast Asia, we went to Australia, like in all of those places, just individual kids who are like, "Yep, I want to bring this band over." And there was like a huge amount of trust on their part and on our part. Like I remember when we were going to Brazil, we had like never met these people. They were from the band Nunca Inverno, and we were about to spend 2 weeks in a van with them. It was a group
Oh,
of five
wow.
boys, five
Mhm.
men. No, they were boys back then. And I did like a Skype call with the singer Luis from the town Blumenau, and it was really grainy, and we were like, "Nice to meet you," through
Mhm.
Skype. And then as we were flying in, it was like a super long flight, and we were like, "All right, if they are sketchy, if they don't show up, if they are like misogynist or something, we'll just go to the beach. We'll lose a couple $1,000, but we will have tried." But they
Yeah.
ended up being absolutely incredible. The tour was off the chain,
Cool.
and they're still friends, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah, it is sort of always a risk traveling too, where it's like, okay, we're counting on everybody. Don't leave us stranded somewhere, or don't be,
Yeah,
um, you know, don't be totally wild or whatever. Do you have
yeah.
any like good stories where things worked out or like things didn't, or you're in a tight spot or anything?
Okay, so same thing. We were getting emails from this guy, C Chan, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, who runs Atonal Microtonal Records.
Mm-hmm.
And we emailed with him for like 2 or 3 years, because you get an email from somebody being like, "I like your band," and we'd be like, "Thanks for liking our band," and then he'd be like, "You should come to Malaysia, LOL," or something, and we'd be like,
Uh-huh.
"Okay, like LOL, yeah, maybe." And then like 6 months or a year go by, and then he's like, "No, really," and then we're like, "No, really, are you real?" you know
Mm-hmm.
Also, you get like lots of or we got emails from people who would be like, you just get funny emails, and not all of them end up being somebody that's going to end up being your friend on the other end.
Yeah, sure.
But so C Chan, we emailed with him for a couple years, and then finally it worked out on this tour where we were going to Australia, Japan, and Southeast Asia. It was like a month and a half or something,
Oh,
3
wow.
different tours. But C-Chan, we fly into Kuala Lumpur, same thing. We're like, well, hope that we can trust this guy. And he leaves us at the airport for like hours without any word. Thought we were flying in at 10 p.m. instead of 10 a.m. or something. And the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi was spotty at the KL airport. And by now we have smartphones, but I guess it was 2014. And we were just like, oh man, what if this doesn't happen? What if he's not coming? We're
Yeah.
in Malaysia and our flight out is in like 2 weeks from Jakarta, which is like 3 countries away. Hope this works. So finally, C-Chan tour was like amazing. In like touring in Asia just felt so special in terms of like how different the cultures are from,
Mhm.
you know, like if you tour like Europe, we've got a lot of like cultural blend. And if you tour in South America, well, we've got a lot of cultural blend with all of the Americas too. It's like within my like previous frame of reference. But in Asia, I just felt like I am learning every second about how different our cultures are, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. And so we were in Malaysia, did the tour there. I could talk for an hour about those shows. They were really special and they were challenging. And C-Chan drives like an absolute maniac, and we were like, we're gonna die.
Ugh.
And then we were leaving Malaysia to go to Singapore, which is like it required taking a bus away from the people that we knew, going through a border check, and entering into Singapore, where Singapore is like super lots of rules. If you get caught with any drugs, they can give you a death sentence, and it says very
Yeah.
prominently.
Even like weed or something.
Oh yeah, which
Wow.
we didn't have anything like that on us anyway, but we were like, okay, the stakes are
Like
high.
they're not playing around here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so we left our people in Malaysia, did the bus ride, navigated the border. We were in a taxi with all our guitars, all our bags, because, you know, like when we were on each of those individual tours, we'd be in the touring vehicle, but when we were going in between, we're just carrying everything. We're just these like burdened people with like
Yeah.
all
Oh.
our, including a like small amount of merch and all of our stuff. And we were in a taxi, and it was like traffic that was absolutely stopped on like a big winding freeway on ramp that was going to end up in the Singapore border.
Uh-huh.
In this cab that our people had directed us into somehow. Sorry, I'm losing some of the details, but we started to smell gasoline, and it was like over 100 degrees out. And then some buddy from another car came running up to our taxi and was like, look, and our car was like ejecting gasoline out of the gas
Oh
hole.
no.
And we were like, what the fuck does this mean? I've never known a car to do this. It's
Yeah.
so hot. The
It could
road
just
is like,
ignite and you guys explode or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Kevin, the drummer of Reviver, and I uh were looking at each other being like, do we fucking call it? Like, if we get,
Do we
like,
get
what
out
do
of this
we do?
car and
And
yeah.
the driver was like, oh, whatever, and like took a bottle of water and started pouring water into the gas hole. And we were like, oh my god, okay.
Oh no. Yeah.
We're like, sir, we are so sorry, but we are getting out. So we got out of the car carrying everything. We're on a freeway overpass that's like very high up in the air with gridlocked traffic and no shoulder. So we're like weaving like Tetris in between all these like baking hot parked cars who
Yeah.
were carrying everything. We've had to walk like
Uh-huh.
so far. And then we got to the Singapore border. And then um it was confusing, and we didn't have anybody with us who was helping us, and we were confused about which way to go, so we accidentally crossed back into to the Malaysia side. Oh
Oh,
my God, I should just cut the story off. They held us in like the police came and were
yeah.
like,
Go
what
on
are
with the story. I'm curious as to what's happening now.
okay. The way the border worked was it was like a huge kind of like lobby where one direction was entering into Singapore and one direction was entering into Malaysia, and under the lobby was the bus depot where you could arrive on buses from Singapore or leave on buses to Singapore.
Yeah.
And we got through the border fine, but then we got down to the bus part and we were like, which is the bus to Singapore? And somebody told us we needed to cross over to the other side,
Oh,
which in hindsight didn't make any sense because we had to like climb over like a verge with lots of like vegetation in it that was clearly not meant for pedestrians carrying 3 huge guitars and a snare and a kick pedal and a bunch of backpacks that we were just
yeah.
like, woo.
Well, you're
So
probably delirious at this point, I'd think, like all the heat and all the just like.
we were absolutely delirious. We weren't crying though. We were just like, oh. We
Yeah,
got to
save
the
that for later after you get through it. And, you
I
know,
know. But then we got to the other side and they were like, oh, we went back up to the other side of that lobby thing and we're like, I think we got lost. And they were like, you don't have any stamps in your passport for Malaysia. And we were like, yeah, we're trying to leave Malaysia to go to Singapore. And they were like, we're calling the police. And they
oh
made us
no.
sit
You
in.
illegally crossed the border, is what you did.
Yeah, we illegally crossed the border by crossing that median. But it
Uh-huh.
worked out. And we didn't end up crying, instead we ended up getting on the bus to Singapore, which was very like clean and tidy. And we were so dirty and so stinky and so stressed.
Yeah.
And we had to hold on to the thing. And we're just like,
Uh-huh.
stress, sweat,
Oh no.
crusty
Yeah.
punks on tour. But we got to
Uh-huh.
the show and we ate delicious food and we were met by incredible people. And we had like a really weird night. That's a whole nother story, but there didn't need to be any crying because there was always like some other huge emotional release at the other side,
Yeah.
getting to play like a show and meet people in a new culture.
What a victory after all that too, where it's like, and we made it to the show and it all happened and
Yeah, and we always did,
mm-hmm.
even when shit was totally hairy and weird.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I think with like kind of our situation with the world right now is like, even if it is like worst case scenario, we're resilient
Yeah,
people. Like, I'll
yeah,
be fucking boiling some water or whatever I gotta do to get through it. Like, even if it's the worst deal, you know?
yeah, totally.
Well, so you
Yeah,
had all these experiences with Reviver. You traveled the world together. You did all this stuff. And then, but you also have your music too. What
yeah.
inspired like the kind of departure into doing your thing?
Well, I feel like, I've been like playing acoustic guitar and singing along with it since I was like 14.
Yeah.
But it's like way um it used to feel way more intimidating and way less valid than being in the like cool powerful punk band, if I'm
Yeah.
shredding on the electric guitar and singing really loud,
Yeah.
then you like have to take me seriously in a way because I'm exuding a bunch of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like after doing that for a couple years and like uh it's like I got brave enough after knowing that I could like hold the torch of the punk band to be like,
Mm-hmm.
because I love playing like the acoustic guitar and singing it. I don't think it's weaker. I don't think it's less skill. It's just
Yeah.
like a different way of working the energy of music.
Mm-hmm.
So I recorded a record in 2012 called Belly that I just was like, well, I guess it's probably 10 songs. I've written 10 songs and I'll just put
Yeah.
them in a record. And then it was like, I love those songs and I think they're really special, but it also, I didn't take it very seriously or expect anybody to listen to it. And then a couple of years later realized that it had become really like beloved to quite a few people. And
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you're saying about kind of the dynamic of like the real kind of rockin', like you sort of have to feel that energy because it's real in your face. Or
yeah,
that's one of the things I appreciate about like rapping and performing is just like, this is my chance to tap into that more
totally.
like kind of aggressive side of myself. And that's fun. And then something like, recording interviews is very much like a lot more mellow or more like vulnerable in a way. And that's kind of, yeah, like a deeper confidence or,
Yeah. It is like, I mean, I do think that like I've got lots of aggression and lots of anger to work out,
sure.
and I love to shred, and
Uh-huh.
I love to sing really loud and hard, but I also feel like in my own self when I was valuing that over writing something that's like, maybe like profoundly pretty or something,
Yeah.
myself, I was being dismissive of the power of being more gentle or being more vulnerable, like, and I think there's I don't know if it would be right to call it sexism or misogyny or some sort of internalized like, well, if I want to be taken seriously, I gotta be big and strong, and instead
Yeah.
like, there you can be so powerful and be soft and gentle, and it's both are so we need them both for different things.
Well, I think, for me, it was like a real, like when I started performing as like a teenager or something, it was a real like affirmation, kind of getting all that energy back and
Yeah.
stuff. And I think a lot of, do you have any memories of like kind of your first little like boost as an artist or performer or something where you like plugged in and you're like, I'm really into that?
Yeah. My first band that I performed in was a marching band called the Infernal Noise Brigade. Have we ever
That's
talked about
awesome.
that?
I don't think so.
That band goes down in history as one of the most fun things I've ever done, if I can ever have a situation like that again. But my first like guitar stacks and drums band that I was in was a black metal band from Olympia called Threnos in
Uh-huh.
2000 and I guess like 3 and 4. It was with 3 boys. It's funny to call them or the Nunca Inverno people boys because they're all men now, but we were all
Yeah.
like kids then. They knew that I like played acoustic guitar at like around the bonfire at like a punk show, and they were like, "You're good. You want to play bass in our band?" And I was like, "I
Uh-huh.
don't know." And then the way the bass was in that band was like,
Uh-huh.
and so at first I just like stood there real still in my body just to focus on double picking as hard as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then it felt awesome. We would take a tincture before we were real like witchy,
Yeah.
the songs were all really like, I didn't write any of the songs. I was just doing what I was told. But the songs were really like hopeful, dark, apocalyptic, like reclaiming ourselves from the ashes, kind of witchy black metal songs. And
Cool.
we would take a tincture before we played that was like cedar and other sorts of like native plants and just really be very serious. Like they were like, please wear black.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm serious with you. And then people would be like, they're taking acid before they play.
Every show. Yeah.
It was really fun. And at one show, I remember this woman, Megan, who was like in my community and friend group then, she was like, you playing in the band makes me feel like I can be at this show, makes me feel good. And I
Yeah.
was like, me? You noticed me?
Mm-hmm.
You noticed that I'm even here, and me even being here made it feel like this space was for you. And that was like
Yeah.
just about how important it is to see ourselves, all of ourselves represented.
Yeah. for me, music was always just kind of like an open invitation to connect with people, or it's like I'd go, or me and a friend, and you go to like a different city and perform. And it was sort of like, okay, this is my set. Here's the introduction to me. Now I can just kind of talk to everyone
Yeah.
in this room and like hang out and feel comfortable. And
Hmm.
I was always like very introverted and never in that zone. And it really just helped me get out of my shell a lot. Or
Yeah. When I was like in my late teens and early 20s, I really identified strongly as like a traveler. Like I got in a truck and drove around Mexico and the United States, and
yeah.
I went and like traveled around Spain, and I was like, I want to travel around in the world. But then when I started playing music, it's like if you just show up as a traveler, you don't know anything. You're a
Yeah.
tourist. But if you show up as a musician, you're giving back to the community and you're invited into the community, and it's the difference between being a unaffiliated visitor and a tour and a traveling welcomed in musician is just like the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just awesome as a way to like, yeah, just connect with people. And you're right, you are like contributing and giving something. And
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
Mm-hmm. My favorite song yours is Moon.
Thanks. I like that song too. When I wrote that song, a friend of mine was like, it's a little somewhere over the rainbow, or like, no, what's that called? That somewhere out there. But anyway.
Yeah.
When I first wrote that song, I played it for a friend who was like, it's kind of like this. Oh no, I wrote a bad song. But then I didn't listen to them and I pressed forward and finished it. And I think it's one of the best songs I've ever written.
It's a great one. I think sometimes too, when you're working on something, like I've done a lot of stuff where I'm working on it, and I think like specifically I'm thinking of like battle rap I used to
Yeah.
do, where it's like it's like pre-written battle raps, and like you have 3 weeks and someone else has 3 weeks, and you kind of do these a cappella battles. And so a lot of it is like crowd reaction, and I'd have like a line where I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a real zinger, and then it doesn't hit, and then it's like a throwaway line where it's like, that's kind of funny or whatever, and then it's like gets a big reaction. Do you kind of know when you're writing
Like,
stuff like, ooh, this is good, or like do you have no kind of meter on what's happening?
I definitely like when you are describing that with your battle rap experience. I relate to that exactly. Like, I've definitely written songs where I'm like, and then people are like, that's the song, that's the one. Or I've written songs where I'm like, I have less experience with this actually, of feeling like this is going to be like the single, and then people are like, oh no, not that one, you know.
Uh-huh. But do you
But
do you ever like know like, oh, this is the single and it is the single?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
like Moon. I knew with Moon. I don't with Young, my new record. I kind of think the single is this song Red Is that I wrote
Yeah.
when I was but I wrote it in 2007, and then like kind of like reworked it with more layers and some like nice guitar arpeggio underneath. Like I spruced it up, and I
Yeah.
got the kid that I wrote it about, who's 15 now, to record me some samples so that I could weave him into the recording. He was like 2 when I wrote it. I thought that I was surprised that people were so into that song. I was like, it's like a really repetitive, like no shape. It doesn't have like verses and chorus. It's just the
Yeah.
same verse over and over again in kind of like a traditional lullaby or folk style.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just like, thank you, that's the song. And I was like, okay.
Part do you ever have like a competitive side with music? Like I'm just thinking about battle rap right now. But do you
Yeah.
ever have like part of you where you're like, I want to be the best verse on this song, or I want my set to be the strongest set of the night and get the best reaction? Or are you totally like no ego about it? Just, what's the honest answer to that, do you
Yeah,
think?
the honest answer I think is that I do have the piece of me that wants to be like, I want to be so good and I want to be recognized for being so good.
Yeah.
I think where I diverge in that from what you are asking is that Like I do get like, yeah, like envious if other musicians are getting like an amount of attention or something. I'm like, how did you get that attention? You
Yeah.
deserve the attention, but I want the attention too. Or like, why
Yeah.
isn't this person getting the attention, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like this kind of like that weird thing about that feels more like competition that are available rather than actual like songwriting
Yeah.
prowess, because I do really believe that the band, like there are good bands that get elevated onto our collective radar, but it's not about being good, it's about having access and money.
Mm.
Like that's who is getting the radio play, that's who's getting like it just doesn't work that if you write the most perfect song you're going to be the one that gets elevated. It's just
Yeah.
not it. And I feel like yes, I want to succeed, and yes, I want to get appreciated for the like effort that I put in, but I don't want somebody else not to succeed, you know? Like if I
Yeah.
want to be like the best at the night, but I also want to be at the show where just every set is blowing everybody's mind, you know?
Yeah.
I don't get I have in the past gotten Schadenfreude or whatever where you're like, oh, you didn't do that good and I'm gonna do better. But
Uh-huh.
I feel like being somebody who's been like touring extensively for the last decade, I have gotten a lot of recognition. I do feel appreciated. People are listening to me. I want other people to be succeeding too. You know what I mean? You know the
Yeah.
difference? Like I don't feel um like I hope that I continue to be appreciated, and I would love to be appreciated more, but I don't feel like I need to be at the front of the pack being like, it's me, you know?
Yeah. I was talking to Zion I, who's an awesome rapper. And, hip hop, it's like there's a lot of collabs where it's like you're doing a verse
Yeah.
on a song. And I asked him kind of a similar question. And I thought he had a real cool answer in that he was saying, like, well, I want to be the best sort of version of myself that I can be on the song. Or it's like someone can have like a hot verse, but I can only have kind of my personality and energy on it. So it's like, well, I can only be the best version of myself. And I thought
Yes.
that was a real cool perspective and probably extends beyond, um, just a verse, but in general, it's like, well, how can I
Yeah.
be the best version of myself? Because no one can, be totally me.
Yeah.
What do you, oh, go ahead.
Well, I also think that like I don't think that your question is problematic, but I do think that like it's capitalism like that makes
Yeah.
us want to be like, I hope I'm the one. I hope I'm the one that's the best, because if I'm the one that's the best, maybe I'll get my needs met and maybe I'll get
It's like a
the
scarcity
recognition.
kind of
Yeah.
perspective.
And like a thing that I've been really thinking a lot about for the past, well, since I moved here to the UK, I've been working at this record label called Specialist Subject Records.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is PR on a real like underground DIY level. So like bands that work with Spec Sub to get their dreams realized, basically, you know?
Yeah.
And when they first gave me the position, I was like, oh no, I am not on the pulse of new music at all. I've been really just focused on my own music and feeling quite burned out on live shows. And so I have spent the last year kind of like cracking open that crust and being like, all right, what's new? What's happening? What's going on? And there's so much good stuff happening all the time that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I know that I can write like a fucking beautiful song and I can be a great lyricist. Like if I'm like doing a song with somebody else and they're writing, if I'm like holding my song side by some other writer, it's like what your person was talking about, like they're going to be the best version of themselves. I'm going to write my stuff the best way that I can, and it's not going to sound exactly the same as some other musician who's of a similar ilk to me, and I don't want us to sound exactly the same, you know, like I
Yeah.
want to appreciate them for what they're doing and be like kind of like in the water with everybody, like hearing what all weird stuff we have to bring, you know?
Yeah. What do you think about sort of the industry stuff of it seems like a lot of younger musicians, you almost have to have some kind of like YouTube videos that aren't even music, or everyone's like aspiring to be an actor or something, or it's like, how else can I get attention to get ears to my music, but it's all sort of not music. I don't know. You have any thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
I feel like I do have thoughts on that, but I'm probably more in a like, I'm watching and observing and learning and wondering rather than having like any sort of authoritative thing to say. Because again,
Yeah.
I got my lift pre 2010 and post 2010, like around that area where it was not like that, you know, like we
Mm-hmm.
weren't trying to be pretty or look good on Instagram. And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, everyone's sort of a little personality now, and you
yeah,
know.
and you do have pressure to like really market your individual self in this way that I don't think is beneficial to either the art or our collective mental health. Or
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to consume everybody's like minutia.
Uh-huh.
I want to hear a good fucking song, you know? But
Yeah.
also, I'm of the past. So that's what I mean. Like, I'm learning and watching. I'm like, yeah, people are getting like really creative with how they try to get attention. There's also so many humans. Like, if you think about the 90s versus now in terms of like, I feel like the 90s is kind of this like frozen moment in my mind where like truly creative weirdos, not all of them, but some of them were being allowed to have the mega platforms, you know, like truly
Yeah.
creative weirdos we were listening to them on the radio, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's so few truly creative weirdos. Maybe like Cardi B is like a true freaky deaky weirdo, but otherwise it's a lot of like yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Now I hear what you're saying. Well, yeah, I really, appreciated you doing the Artesian Well shows with us 2 years in a row too.
Yeah, I
Um,
love those.
That was great. Well, and that was sort of a space where it just seemed like the whole community was down on it. And,
Yeah,
I wanted to like do something there. And I just thought that was cool. We had the opportunity. So I just wanted to thank you for being part of that with us. So that was a lot of fun.
yeah, you're welcome, and then thank you for including me, because same, like, you can play so many shows in the voyeur back room. It's like really nice to be out in the open, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I just like was thinking about this one thing about, okay, I'm gonna tell you one more quick story. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I got infinite time over here.
Well, there was an art walk in 2008 or something where there was a band up on tour from San Francisco that were friends of mine. And it's two Olympia bands and one San Francisco band pulled a PA. I think we ran an extension cord from QB and did a punk show in the graffiti alley behind the Capitol Theater.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And because we knew we were probably going to we didn't get a permit like you did for the well.
Yeah.
But we were like, it's art walk. So everybody's like going off the rails anyway. But
Uh-huh.
we
And that's the
were like,
punk way to do it.
yeah. And it felt like we were camouflaged by the chaos of art walk,
Mm-hmm.
which was way chaotic back then. I loved art walk, especially
Yeah.
when I was a teenager in Olympia. It was the best. But so we, instead of playing full sets each, we did 2 songs, 2 songs, 2 songs, so that if the cops came, we all would have had a chance to play. And I think we all got 3 rounds. We were like, okay, go, okay, go.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 years afterwards, I heard feedback from like my parents' age people being like, I saw you in the alley at Art Walk. That was so cool. It felt so alive or something.
Uh-huh.
I just feel like if we always do our music tucked away in the corners that we save as our safe spaces for ourselves and only our people go, then we're missing out on this like broader community thing that's actually like so important, and it nourishes everybody in it. I felt like when you asked me to play the well, I was like, yes, that's where those intersections meet. So I was really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, that was a cool thing. I did a similar thing to what you're talking about with the 2 songs, and we just got a generator and went to the artesian well. And this was years before. It was before it was even really like a park or anything. And we just kind of did that for fun once downtown.
That's cool. How long
Yeah.
did it last?
Oh, the cops came eventually, but we all got through at least 1 or 2 rounds of songs.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have you back in Olympia again someday, at least to visit her.
I definitely will
You know,
visit.
you always got your Olympia ties. Well, just thank you for taking so much time to talk to me and get into it. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good luck with this podcast. It was really fun talking to you.
So that's the show. Huge thank you again to Erica Freas. Just thank you for taking the time. I'm very excited about next week's episode because I'm going to be speaking with the legendary Gift of Gab from Blackalicious. So, my high school hip hop hero, love Blackalicious. It's going to be a great conversation. Again, just please help me get the word out about this. Leave a comment, tell a friend, share it around. We're trying to get this out there. So thank you for being part of the Beehive. We'll see you next week. Peace.